So I've learned how to say Anbernic RG35XX a lot more fluidly. And that's about the only thing I don't like about this device. And we're going to talk about it tonight on Bog Panda. I'm Kelly at KELLYTHUL on Twitter and Instagram and Threads.
I am Dr. Mike. I have an energy drink for all you soda cucks out there. And you can find me at Official Pagan on everything, including Threads as well. How many threaders, threadists do you have following? I have no idea how this thing works.
Um so my stock and trade had always been Twitter. That's where the focus was. That's where I tried to build up the biggest community and had done okay there. 3,000, between 3 and 4,000 followers. So I was okay. And Instagram, I never really actively sought out. I just use it to put out pictures and look at other pictures people do, and so it didn't really actively do a lot of community building on Instagram. And so it appears that the connection between Threads and Instagram is strong. And so I think I'll likely end up with about as many followers as I have on Instagram, which I don't even know what that is, but it's not my Twitter number. But so far, I'm liking it. I mean, there's obviously it's a little feature poor right now on some things that they'll need to add. I have pretty good confidence that those features will be added. What's your experience been so far?
So I joined it. I posted a couple of things. I think I have 1,000 followers on it.
Well,
I don't know if that's
pretty active on Instagram, and so I think that you're able to kind of draft off of that audience into your Threads
probably.
environment. So
Yeah, I have a good following on Instagram, like 6,000 or something like that on Instagram. So yeah, I mean it's there, it exists. I don't really understand it. I know it's meant to be like their take on Twitter, but I never like Twitter just never really clicked for me completely.
it used to click for me, and then I over time.
I loved it for like live tweeting that we would do, but anything beyond that, for me, it just never worked.
Live tweeting was great, and the I don't know, maybe we should have done a thread show at some point in time. Maybe we will. But the ability to connect, I mean, it was the engine that drove a lot of whether it's Narcotic Radio or other stuff. It was the connecting point for many of the folks. It's how we got to and began to interact with typically was through Twitter because of the live tweets and other ways from there. And so, and what I always used to say is, well, you control your own destiny on Twitter. Whoever you follow, that's going to be kind of the diet of what you get. So if you don't like what you're getting from somebody, unfollow them, and you kind of tune your experience. But it just kind of over time, that seemed to fade away a little bit, and you were going to be subject to lots of different people with lots of things to say about things I don't care about. And so it and it's from my crazy man, so there's that. And so there was the type of thing there, and it's just I don't know. We'll see. I think I'm hopeful. It seems like there's a chance for us all to get on Threads and be on better behavior. Don't know how long that'll last, but maybe for a bit. It'll be nice. But it's just crazy. Everybody wants to be first. Everybody wants to. I'm the new expert on this, and it's just like, relax, try it out, see if you like it. But as fascinating as I'm sure that was to everybody, that's not what we're here to talk about.
I'm not even done the intro. That was that was part of my intro.
Oh,
that's how good I am at this. I didn't even say make sure you guys like, subscribe, leave a comment, hit up our merch store, and while you're at it, unlike our intros for this, we have a really short show called Hard No that you can check out. In fact, some have said the world's shortest podcast.
Many have said that. Many people tell me it's the world's shortest podcast.
But you know what? It's the girth.
Anyway, so we'll It'll likely be the video recommended at the end of this video. We did a show on the Anbernic RG35XX a while back, and it looked intriguing. There's alternatives out there to it. There's kind of a pitched battle between a couple folks on what the small handheld would be. And so I'm going to butcher the name very likely, but there's the Miho Mini as well. And I was looking at both. The nice price point to them, retro gaming up to PS1, super portable. And I had a trip here recently, and I said, you know what? For the good of the show, I'm going to go invest in one of these and gain experience, so I can come back and talk about it. And
you sacrificed your time.
Yes, my time
for the good of
my
our
money
listeners
to for you, the Bog Panda viewer, to say
the Panda Army. He gets a Panda Purple Heart.
There you go. But part of the benefit was that the price ain't so bad, so you can, it's a pretty affordable system to bring in. They float in terms of prices around, but basically between 60 and $80 you're going to land an Anbernic RG35XX, depending where you want to order it from, and all that good stuff. You can get one that looks almost exactly like a Game Boy. In fact, anybody that saw me with it over my travels was like, "Is that a Game Boy? Is that a Game Boy?" So it's like, it's that and more. So it was a good thing to say. But we're probably going to do a couple shows on this. One, I just wanted to kind of share with Mike, because he's the internet marketing gods have sensed in him a weakness that this might be something he's interested in, and have been battering him with ads. Is that accurate, sir?
That is very, very accurate. Pretty much anytime I go on Amazon or Instagram at this point.
Yeah, so they're good about that. So I was on a bit of a toss-up still, because I'm not going to get Wi-Fi with the RG35XX, but it was the one to me had the straightest and clearest true line through to be able to put Amiga games on it, and that for me was all I needed to hear. And it was also the one I was going to be able to get shipped to me in time before my trip. So that's
that matters as well.
That was a factor as well. So I was kind of tossing up at the end. I'm pretty happy. I'm very happy with my choice. You obviously, this is one of about 1 billion videos on the RG35XX. So what I hope is different about this one is, and I don't want to speak for Mike, but for me, I enjoy retro gaming. I enjoy doing some level of emulation, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of lazy and I'm not all that smart. And so if I have to really, really become expert in BIOS and configuration and RetroArch and all the different, and knowing how to go in and overclock through parameters and do all these types of things versus hitting a button, which is how you overclock the RG35XX. It's a little bit, I wasn't ready to make that level of investment. I don't have a highly cultivated ROM library. I pay people to do that for me and have them send it to me on a Super Console XX. And so that's what I do. So I don't have the kind of depth of understanding that a lot of these folks who are putting out the videos do. And I'm going to bet there's a few people out there that are not that different than me. So I've kind of talked about my lack of expertise level on this space. Where would you put yourself on the continuum?
About the same, I would say. I've played around a little bit with emulators, but I've seen, obviously there's people who deep dive into all this and mix and match different things to come up with their own sort of Super Console X configurations. The closest thing I guess I have to that, and I just happen to have it in front of me here. This wasn't planned. I have a hard drive where I'm putting the Jaguar and 3DO games. So it's my own little hard drive concoction. And this has worked out really well for me to be able to play them off of this, just because the disc-based games are bigger and I just don't want these taking up room on my laptop essentially. So I can put the emulators on here and just play it straight off of this hard drive, which is great. Beyond that, though, I don't do anything fancy. The Super Console X is great for me because it's something you just buy, plug it in, and play it. I just want to click a button and play that game.
Yep. Yep. That's and I'm willing to do like a little bit to pretend like I know what I'm doing, just to give a little sense of security. But this, so tons of videos out there on how remarkably easy it is to do a couple adjustments to the RG35XX and open the door to adding many more games and doing all these things. And so I want to talk through a few of those things. And I'm not going to call these folks liars who said it's the easiest thing in the world. I am going to say it might have been the easiest thing in the world for them. But if you're coming in pretty cold to this space and your main development expertise in setting up emulation is providing your credit card number to get something that's already ready to roll, to be able to hit that button. If you're a little closer to that, you're a little closer to me. So it wasn't super hard. And I didn't have to spend an inordinate amount of time getting really deep into understanding some of the mechanics, but it wasn't super easy. And I did have to spend some time. And actually, there's another portion we'll talk about that I'm spending god awful time with, hours and hours so far logged in, and we'll talk a little more about that. So, but basically, and going to be working on selling Mike here. I really think he needs to get this device. Price is right. So when he gets that device, he is going to benefit by the fact that he will be able to stand on all of my learning that I do. When he's ready to go, he needs to let me know, and I will load up an SD card for him, and I'll send it to him. That will be a culmination of all the work that I have done to adjust, and then you'll be able to stick it in and press the button and play the game. So that's pretty good offer right there.
That's what I want.
That's the way it goes. But let me take you on my journey a little bit, which is so things we hear when we folks talk about the RG35XX. First of all, the SD card that comes with it is crap and will likely fail on you. It's 64 gig, and you're on borrowed time on that SD card. It's the cheapest SD card made. I believe it's made out of bamboo. I'm not 100% certain on that, but it is not a high quality card. Pretty decent amount of storage is 64, but if you're going to load up a bunch of other games, probably going to 128 gig is a smart move. You'll then kind of have the option, because I do recommend you run as quickly as possible away from their SD card. And you'll can do one of two things. And this is actually cool. There are two SD slots on this device, and one that can contain the operating system and the other that can contain ROMs. And so you can, once we go through the next part of the journey, when we add a different firmware and OS to the RG35XX, you could actually be able to just pull that card out, put back in the bamboo SD card, use the default firmware, or you can go to the recommended firmware, which is Garlic OS. So nearly anybody who's gotten this device that puts a video out on YouTube says, go to, and what's on Reddit and everywhere else is, go to Garlic OS, replace the default operating system. Is just, it's functional. I used it a little bit, but I very rapidly, based on the advice of the seers out there, said, okay, I need this Garlic OS. And so now I'm like, okay, I'm updating the firmware on a device I just bought the night before I'm getting on a plane, that I want to use this and figure it out. What could go wrong? But it wasn't bad. There's some software. We're going to do a much deeper dive, step by step, on what I had to go through. But I'll mention some things. We'll include some links here if you want to just kind of piece the journey together yourself. If not, we'll do a later video where I get in a little more detail, step by step. But you get some software. If you don't already have software to flash an SD card, you'll need to get that software. There's a link for you that. You then download the Garlic OS, and then there's a an image burning software that you can kind of flash that image on and away you go. Um, and so got garlic up and going, and then that's kind of where you got the choice about you can load everything on the one, because when garlic loads up as a operating system, it has a ROMs folder, and you could use that, and now you got everything on one SD card. Or you could kind of stay with the model of I'm just keeping my operating system on this card and all the ROMs are on the second SD card slot. I have opted to go with one card. And so I have my entire garlic experience on one card, and rolling the dice on the crappy SD card it came with. The original experience and ROMs are all on that one.
Okay.
So I basically copied all the ROMs from the existing card and put them on my garlic OS card. So which is the first place things get a little weird because the directory names are different. And so kind of sorting through Super Nintendo, which is typically called, whether it's the Nintendo Entertainment System or the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, I'm used to seeing things like, I don't know, NES, SNES, Super Nintendo, Nintendo Entertainment System. These are the type of directory names I've seen. What I wasn't prepared for, and this is actually true in garlic, was FC and SFC for
Famicom.
Famicom and Super Famicom, which it's the lineage, and that's where it came from. But so there's just some things there, tons of resources online to help you sort through that. Because then if you jump over and say, I don't know, maybe there's a few ROMs sitting on my Super Console X, I want to pull off of that SD card, move across, and you got a different kind of directory naming convention for those ROMs, and that becomes kind of important for things to work right. But there's plenty of reference things out there, so kind of getting garlic up and running, not a problem. It's a nice clean, it's not super complicated, but it does open the door for Amiga and all that, which is fantastic. The So I got that stuff moved across the interface. You've got tons of options out there. I didn't like the icons for the gaming system, so I started modifying some icons, and we'll see. So probably tied to the next video. I'm very pleased with my Atari 2600, 5200, and 7800 icons I came up with, which was kind of taking their original Atari one and modifying it a little bit. I like it better than anything else I've seen. But so maybe we'll find a way to make those available to you as well if you want to kind of drop those in, because this is a small device. And if you are using a kind of detailed logo, it's scaled down a lot. And it can be kind of hard to read. So doing some things to make that icon very quick to identify is good. It's not so good in my opinion, even on the default garlic ones, or certainly on the super or on the original Anbernic firmware. But there's a whole site. We'll include a link to it down there where there are just tons of different options. I'm working. One of the places I've been unsuccessful so far is to have a Bog Panda boot screen. That I'm close, but I've got a little bit of work to do on that. But I have kind of dropped in the other interface. So I've got an interface. I got some icons for the systems I'm pretty comfortable with. I through methods had ROMs. I bought a lot of Amiga games, by the way, so I was able to secure backups of those games in some places, and so I'm able to load quite a few Amiga games on as well. And so I'm kind of up and running, and it's pretty good. So the whole process of kind of securing some of the core ROMs, knowing where to put those ROMs that you've acquired legally, getting those dropped in, getting the new OS system, not too bad. But there are things like almost all the videos out there that say, oh, you just go here and download this one zip file, and there you go. And that's the Garlic OS. It's like, well, there's two files now. There's two zip files. So there's no videos out there saying, here's how you do something with two files. So they do talk about, they recommended using 7-zip in all of their one zip file chicanery that they were putting out there. It's not the current world. And I was like, I don't need to use that. I'm good on my extracting stuff. But Then all of a sudden I come across, I got 2 zip files. I'm like, do I unzip them both and then squish them together? I don't know. But there was good instructions on opening a multi-file zip file thing with 7-zip. So I downloaded it. I've had it before and excuse me, deleted it and brought it back and worked like a champ. And that I unzipped the first one using 7-zip and it automatically grabs the second one. And so all the work got done for you. So a little trick on getting garlic up and running there. And then getting the initial interface was a snap, kind of getting things ported across, a little tricky because of the making sure the directory names are appropriate and all that. And so I very positive, really recommend getting it. Probably the most challenging, and many people will laugh who are super in emulation, like that's not hard at all. But once you get all this loaded up, if you jump to a system, when you bring it up, it's going to have the list of all the games that are in the directory. And you can scroll through that list and pick a game to play. But you don't get a thumbnail of the box art. And so there's a way to do that and a way to add that. And you create an images file folder within the ROM library directory for the ROM library. And you populate exactly matching the name. And there's actually 2 ways with garlic to do it. One requires you to have kind of 2 file extensions, and another one where they need to be PNG files, certain size, certain orientation. And you do that, and then you actually do have to go in and edit one small piece of XML code to get the names to be left justified and starting at a certain point. So it's not like super hard to do. Plenty of instructions out there how to accomplish it. But what is hard is, at least what I've been stumbled so far, is there's scraping tools out there that will go across an entire directory and handle your box art collection for you. But I'll be damned if I can figure out how it works. I've been trying and trying. And I said, it'll be kind of cool just to go ahead and pull these. I know a couple directories where there's a lot of box art, and I can just kind of go there and I'll just pull them down and resize them, and we'll do that. Well, that is pretty cool for the first 20 games, but it begins to become a bit cumbersome a little bit later. And you've got to have those file names exactly match the name of the ROM, and there's a lot of work. So it's a lot of drudgery. So again, the SD card you're going to get in the mail, you will benefit by my hours and hours.
I appreciate that, sir,
because I haven't figured out how to use scraping software yet. So, but if any of our listeners can say, "Hey, dummy, here are either the 3 steps you need to do to use the scraping software," or can point me to a video that very easily and simply doesn't give me any of this whole 1-zip file, 2-zip file crap. I don't need any more of that. But if you can kind of get me to the idiot's guide to scraping that stuff where I could press a button and do it, that'd be great. Because there's other software I did figure out how to use that does actually require you to type something in a command line at some point in time, but that will do kind of a mass resizing. You get all your images into one folder and you run this across it, and it handles getting them formatted so that it's going to work really well to display a thumbnail for you. And then you just got to bump the text, but you got to have those images to work with. So I've been trudging through the Amiga. I was so excited at all the Amiga games I put on there. I was less excited when I realized how many of these I need to pull down and go and rename, and a few of them are JPEG. So it's a mess. So, but we're getting there. But I love the device. I think it's great. Everybody that I've kind of shared it with, I've also got Doom up and running on it, because Doom can run on a baked potato and an Anbernic RG35XX.
Well,
Diablo,
so I guess that's my first question. Because you did post a picture on Threads of you playing Doom on there. See, we're plugging our Threads.
There you go.
Pages, Looms. I have no idea what it's called. And so go follow us both on there. What version of Doom are you playing? What platform is that?
So I'm right as of right now, because I've had trouble getting Doom 2 up and running. So I'm playing OG Doom. And best I can tell, it's like a PC port,
Okay.
probably of what Doom is. And but great gameplay, super smooth. The speaker, this is like I said, between 60 and $80. So guess what, gang? You're not getting high quality speaker at that price point. Um, but with headphones on, it's okay. It's been a little sketchy on a few of the Amiga games so far, but I think that's an emulation issue, not a device issue. Um, but I'm assuming from what I'm seeing that I'm playing a PC port of Doom, and then which would be kind of the same for Diablo 1, and then a raft of Duke Nukem games. There's like six different Christmas Duke Nukem version that looks just super fun, and haven't had a chance to do too much of it with it yet. But a lot of Duke Nukem 3D stuff, and those were all boom up and running really really quick.
Nice.
So
So what are some of the other systems you've tried out on there, and have you run into any issues with particular systems? So like with Super Console X, for example, there's a Nintendo 64 folder in there with a bunch of games. In my experience so far, they don't run well. Most of them don't run. If you go in and play with the settings, you can kind of get them to run, but they're very buggy.
yeah, so I have Super Nintendo, NES, Game Gear, Amiga, Doom, and ports, Master System. And have all been the ones I probably have the most experience with. It gets pretty murky. This is the one place I'm still working through a little bit more too. So Neo Geo, basically, if you use Garlic, you'll move in this thing where you've got a ROMs folder and all the ROMs are in that in a directory structure. And then there's a BIOS folder. And you load all the BIOSes to kind of get up there that are necessary to kind of run these systems. And those are another one that when people no one gives you a direct link to say here's where you find the BIOSes. So that's the ones you get. Well, I'll tell you what the name is, and then kind of up to you if you do something like search Google and oh looky there, there's one of those I can download. But you need to have the BIOSes. What's nice is with between Anbernic's default load and a little bit of prospecting over on my Super Console X, I was able to kind of make sure I was in pretty good shape on the BIOSes, with the exception of Neo Geo, in that all the BIOSes set up in the BIOS folder for every system so far, except Neo Geo, where it needs to be in the directory with the ROMs. I've done that. It's still not working. so I'm needing to sort through that. But PlayStation 1, I guess, is the other one that and that's really kind of where this system stops, is PlayStation 1. But really solid PlayStation 1 games. And on the Amiga side, there's Amiga CD32 games. There's Amiga AGA games. All of I've had basically any of those platforms work, and do fine from there. So, but PlayStation 1, super solid from there. Um, so those have been really made, and then of course the Atari family of 2600, 5200, and 7800, Ninja Golf. It's on there, raring to go. So those have been kind of the main systems that I've kind of interacted with so far.
Makes sense. Yeah, I could see. So the Neo Geo thing is interesting because Neo Geo, you're starting to get into much comparatively gigantic file sizes compared to the other systems that you're playing. I mean, the largest at the end of Sega's life, the largest officially published cartridge, officially published by Sega, cartridge was 40 megs. Neo Geo games were typically in the like 3 to 400 meg range. So, I mean, there are comparatively giant to the 16-bit systems. So I don't know like how that plays a role in it. I'd actually send you a video the day that we're recording this. The president of Sega as was doing an interview and was asked about future mini systems, basically hinting at, why isn't there a Saturn or a Dreamcast mini system? And he basically just said it's too hard to do in mini format, that they're trying to figure it out. But as of right now, they're struggling trying to make that work in the mini format. So I do wonder, like, how much of it is just, are we jumping a generation too far trying to emulate those on certain devices? Like Super Console X, the few PlayStation 1 games I played work fine. Nintendo 64 does not.
Yeah, I've had limited luck with Nintendo 64 and Super Console X. A lot of key mapping to do, and even then,
Yeah, even once you get that, it's a very, at least in my experience, it's very buggy in my experience. It makes the games very difficult to play.
yeah, and and I think for whatever reason, it's that trigger, the trigger, the Z button on a 64 seems to be the death knell for a lot of the emulations, because like Donkey Kong Country, where the Z button plays a significant role in your passage. Um, no, I can get it to work for a while, but it's just not great. Yeah, this one, it is what it is. So you're not going to be able to be doing, the 32-bit is where things stop. Nothing's going over 32-bit in terms of capabilities. PlayStation 1, kind of, that's your state of the art for the system. But for a little handheld to just kind of play games, super portable, price is right, experience is right. You get to kind of tinker a little bit here with a firmware update or putting a different OS on it, and dealing with some of that. And so it's kind of a little bit of a project that's fun to do, not too difficult, not as simple as someone like you think, but still not too difficult. And you're off and running. So I highly recommend. It's just, when I'm starting to run, and we're gonna, I think, over the next few weeks here, be talking about kind of several other experiences too. It is getting, I'm trying to figure out kind of where my uh, level is on where I need what I need. So Super Console X has served me well. That's really good. That is a plug and play. It's the device, goes in the projector. You don't need anything else, and off you go. This emulation up to a certain era of super portable, kind of fun to take on travel. So those are two areas kind of covered off. But then you can get in more like the console thing, like with you've done with Evercade. And so there's that kind of, whether it's a console or slightly larger handheld pieces there that are good. And then there's the hard drives. You're building kind of your own on your hard drive with 3DO and Jaguar emulation, but there's a number of hardware drive options out there where you need to have a computer to plug it into. But you can do that. So I'm trying to figure out what bases I need to cover. I am starting to think there's a world better for me than, we've been big Super Console X fans. And it's still, I mean, massive coverage, but a few quirks like Nintendo 64, not a good experience. They didn't exactly curate their list with a fine tooth comb, I'd say.
True.
And so I'm going to continue to look to kind of see what's the device, but it is nice that I can just connect it and I'm off and going. So,
yeah, I mean, it's great to just be able to just pull up, beat him, and eat him whenever, wherever. Just get right down to business.
Yep. Yep. Those games translate across to their Bachelor Party is their Custer's Revenge. Very, if you happen to be in a position where that ROM's available, it works just fine. That classic Halloween is there.
Nice.
So they're all there.
Very nice. Yeah, classic Halloween, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2600 game, Friday the 13th for NES. These are some of the games that would definitely be added to my perfectly legal ROM collection on there.
Yep, and that I'm not saying that SD cards crossing state lines, but those you might actually find a few of those present on the SD cards.
Kelly's like, I have multiple physical copies of Beat 'em and Eat 'em and Custer's Revenge. So
that's
these are legal backups.
It's not typically what I say, but we'd be interested in what you have to say about what do you think? One, you have, does this fit a need for you? Is this kind of nice to have a kind of a little mini, super small, highly portable retro gaming thing? If so, I know there's other options out there. Have you gone a different way? Why? Would be good to know on that. And as I mentioned before, anyone who can explain scraping to get thumbnails to a complete idiot, this complete idiot would love to be taught because I'm getting so tired of going through these thumbnails. So it's a plead. I'm pleading for someone to help me out here.
I do, just before we wrap up on this topic, I have to ask, the greatest console of all time, is it on there? Have you attempted to play any games from the truly majestic 32X?
I have, and solid,
Nice.
good experience there. I thought you were going to say Virtual Boy, which I have too.
So, oh, well, also, yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Virtual Boy was an early ad. I wanted to make sure that, say, well, if I can play Virtual Boy, I'm good.
I tried to introduce Virtual Boy to my wife, and because she's a big Mario fan. So I was like, hey, check this out. She's like, what is this? Why does it look like that? I was like, imagine if it was strapped to your head. She's like, what are you talking about? It's great.
Yep. Yeah. It would be not only difficult to play and see, but it will introduce headaches potential.
Well, she was even saying, she's like, this will give me a headache if I sit here and play this long enough. I was like, imagine it was like an inch from your eye. That's even better.
And you had to sit hunched over.
Yeah. Imagine you were uncomfortably hunched over a table with your face pressed against the screen.
Yep. So the majestic systems are there, both the 32X and Virtual Boy. So we're good there. Let us know if you've gone this way, if you've gone with some of the other options that are out there. And Professor Screen Scraper, hit me up. I'm ready.
Let us know, because we go both ways.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bog Panda.